It's our last chapter of Gooney Bird, Chapter 7. Gooney Bird looked around the classroom. She slid the strap of her cowhide purse from her shoulder and set the purse on the floor below the terrarium table. With her face scrunched into a quiet, thinking expression, she unbuttoned her orange fur jacket and hung it on the back of the chair by her desk. Then she returned to the front of the room and faced the class. She was wearing a blue plaid skirt, a white blouse, black tights, and brown lace-up shoes. There were bright blue hair ribbons in her neatly brushed red hair. She looked ordinary. She looked dignified. She looked wise. Out there, invisible, are a lot of stories not yet told, Gooney Bird told the class. Absolutely true ones? Beanie asked in a small voice. Yes, absolutely true ones. What are they? Asked Beanie. Do you remember my first story was called How Gooney Bird Got Her Name? Gooney Bird asked. Yes, Beanie replied. Well, another is called How Beanie Got Her Name. Before I was born, Beanie said, laughing, there was a thing called an ultrasound that showed me curled up inside my mom, and I looked just like a bean. My mom said lima bean, and my daddy said no jelly bean, so that's a fine story. Beginning, Gooney Bird said, an absolutely true one. You should tell that one on Friday, Beanie. What other invisible stories are out there, Miss Pigeon asked. Do you remember my second story about how I came from China on a flying carpet? Oh my, yes, Miss Pigeon said. I had to look up China on the atlas. Out there, invisible and waiting, Gooney Bird said, is a story called Let Me Think. She closed her eyes. Is that the title, Let Me Think? Malcolm asked. No, Gooney Bird opened her eyes. The story is called How Kiko's Family Came to Water Tower. Kiko smiled. Well, they started out on a ship, she said. First, my grandmother and my grandfather got on a big ship in Yokohama and went to Honolulu. They were a little scared because they'd never been to America before. Miss Pigeon, you should get the atlas out. Miss Pigeon smiled. I will. Will you tell her a story, Kiko? Maybe on Wednesday? Okay, Kiko said, and I'll bring some pictures. How about if I wear a kimono? That wouldn't be distracting like whiskers, would it? It would be lovely, Gooney Bird said. And I could maybe carry a fan and a parasol. Gooney Bird said gently. Well, it would be a little like whiskers, Kiko. Overdoing it? Kiko asked. Overdoing it, Gooney Bird said. What about me? Asked Barry. Do I have a story? Of course you do, Gooney Bird told him. You have stories called How Barry Got His Name, How Barry's Family Came to Water Tower, and lots of others. Barry grinned. Which one should I tell? He asked. Do you remember my third story was about my diamond earrings? Barry nodded. My suggestion is that when it's your turn, Barry, you should tell that absolutely true story called When Barry Spent Every Penny He Had on Something He Wanted Really Badly. The class waited and watched Barry Tuckerman as he squinched his face up thinking. Then he grinned. Okay, he said, I'll tell it. But it's really, really gross. Oh, no, said Kiko. I hate gross. You can cover your ears for Barry's story, Gooney Bird told her. Wear earmuffs that day. Green ones will go nicely with your red sweater, I think. Who else? What else? The class called. My fourth story was how Gooney Bird directed an orchestra, Miss Pigeon suggested. Maybe we could skip that one, Gooney Bird. I know no one in this class has ever led an orchestra. Class? Gooney Bird asked. Has anyone ever been late to school because something quite unusual happened? Almost every hand went up. Malcolm, Gooney Bird said, maybe that story could be your assignment. It could be called While Malcolm Was Late to School. It could be about the time I fell asleep under my bed and my mother couldn't find me in the morning, Malcolm said. Or the time that I dropped my toothbrush in the toilet and I tried to get it back and I... Oh no! Kiko cried and covered her ears. Don't tell it now and give it away, Malcolm, Gooney Bird said. You work on your story. Make it very suspenseful by adding a suddenly in the middle. Gooney Bird looked around the classroom. All the second graders had taken out paper and pencils. They were all writing down ideas for their stories. And remember my last story about Catman? She reminded him. Has anyone ever here lost a beloved pet? Almost every hand went up again, even Miss Pigeon's. Could that be my story, Gooney Bird? Miss Pigeon said. I had a parakeet named Brucey, and somehow the door to his cage was left open, and... Next Tuesday, Gooney Bird said, How I Lost Brucey. And I found him again, Miss Pigeon said with a happy smile. My story has a surprise ending. Mine will be how I lost Gretchen Guinea Pig, Tricia said. Mine has a sad ending. You know what Miss Pigeon said, standing up? It's lunchtime already. Let's skip arithmetic class today. The students put their arithmetic books back in their desks, and they reached for their lunch boxes instead. Gooney Bird took out a grapefruit, a cucumber, and some dill pickles. I'm having a completely vegetarian day today, she explained. But look at this, for dessert for the whole class. She held up a bulky paper bag. What is it? The children asked. Gooney Bird grinned. 63 gumballs, she said. And after I give them out, I am going to teach you all a wonderful whirling dance called the tarantella. Suddenly, Felicia looked up from the floor. Shouldn't we all hug and kiss first? She said in a surprisingly loud voice. Thank you for suggesting that, Felicia Ann, Gooney Bird replied. Of course we should. And so they did. The end.